Happy 2024. Welcome to our very first episode of the new year. We are so excited to get this year underway. My name is Nicole, and as always, I am joined here by the lovely Journey and Rebecca. For this episode, we're going to kind of switch things up and just have a bit more of an open discussion and conversation and learning session, I guess, about Black Widow killers. Journey's going to give us a couple examples of some, and then we'll just see where the episode takes us. I would like to note that there is a listener's discretion advised, as there are detailed descriptions of sexual assault and baby death. With that out of the way, lovely start, as always, to our episodes. Journey, do you want to delve into Black Widow killers and what they are?
Yeah.
Not the spider, I will say. I'll let everyone know. Not the spider.
Yeah, I was terrified Googling because I'm terrified of spiders, so I really didn't want to accidentally be like, ooh, Black Widow spiders. So there really isn't too much information about what Black Widow killers are without going into like specific examples. So I have just a brief overview of what they are, some motivations, some MOs, and things like that. And then I go into two examples. One is relatively well known, even though you guys hadn't heard of her before. I think she's kind of well known, but the other is also Canadian, from Nova Scotia. So that one was super cool. And I think we talked about her in one of our forensics like group chats or whatever. We were just talking about it before we started recording. I don't really remember it, but I also kind of remember seeing like the news article. So who knows?
Yeah, I think it was just a news article that was shared at one point. That's like the extent of my knowledge of it.
Yeah, I feel that. So to start, what is a Black Widow killer? A Black Widow killer is a woman who kills multiple spouses, partners, or other family members. They use persuasion to attract their victims and go through a long cycle of killing, and they sometimes wait years before finding a new victim. I feel like a lot of the times when we picture like a Black Widow killer, we think of someone who like meets a guy, they fall in love, they get married, they decide they don't like them anymore, they kill them for the insurance payout kind of thing.
Yeah, I was already like, with your description, I was already like, oh, that's different than what I thought I knew. Like talking about killing family as well. Because I always only ever heard it was a woman killing their husband, probably for financial gain.
Yes, exactly. And so that's a very common definition. I found a like dissertation of someone who focused on female serial killers, and they talked about Eileen Wuornos and Nannie Doss, who I talk about as well. I kind of used their paper for a basis of what a Black Widow killer is. And they said that often these women are highly organized, intelligent, manipulative, and carefully plan their kills, which makes sense because women are just those things, except for really manipulative. But
that is their fair share, I will say.
Yeah. If the shoe fits. So why are they called Black Widow killers? This I didn't know. They share their name with a Black Widow killer they share their name with the Black Widow spider, which are the most venomous spiders in the US, even though a lot of people don't actually die from a spider bite, which is reassuring. But there's a myth.
I just had a really quick thing to say about those spiders. Another misconception I always had growing up was if you were bitten by a Black Widow, you're done for.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's always what I heard. Like, be aware of the little red hourglass because it's deadly.
I was always told that they'd be hiding under your toilet seat. So that was my fear as a child. Was always checking under.
Yeah, I got real itchy researching this. I didn't really enjoy it. But so there's a myth about the female spiders eating their partners after sex. And this sometimes does happen, but it's not a regular occurrence. So that's why certain female killers are considered Black Widow killers.
Isn't that also super common with praying mantises eating their partners?
Yeah, praying mantises, so. I think unlike the Black Widow, it's like every single time they mate, the female eats the head of the male.
That's hardcore.
So that would be like a more appropriate name for a Black Widow killer, a praying mantis killer.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's almost scarier.
They are pretty creepy looking.
That's true.
They got funny little eyes.
That is true. Okay, so for the most part, like we kind of already said, Black Widow killers are driven by money. However, there can be a few cases where they are driven to kill in order to exert power in a male-dominated home life. Alternatively, they can kill to remove competition and solidify control over other members of the family. They can also kill if their partner turns abusive. All of those things kind of make sense. The MO part was like really interesting, and I don't know if this classifies the MO or like their choice of weapon. So depending on the source, poison was the most common way a Black Widow killer killed someone, but really they can use anything.
I feel like poison too falls in just with women and serial killers, because statistically poisoning is like the higher percentage of weapon choice for women.
I'm so glad you said that.
Oh,
so
okay. Tell me more.
There are a few studies that say that poison isn't necessarily a female-based weapon.
Cool.
In poison-based killings, it was like pretty much 50-50 for men and women choosing it. But they're like, if you look at out of all female serial killers, then poison does have a higher percentage. But it's not. But the men use it too.
So that's the skewing of percentages, that's very shocking to me too, especially because coming back to the CSI effect, watch our Gap Science episode if you haven't. CSI shows are always like, the victim was poisoned, the killer must be female. Like, every time. Every time.
Well, and like there was a couple sources that said if the victim was a man, then the perpetrator was a man, could be either a man or a woman. But if the victim was a woman, then the perpetrator was most likely a man. If poison was used. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, so because I also had the same thought. I was like, poisoning is a very quote unquote female way to kill someone. Apparently not. And
the more you know.
Exactly. So that being said, the method of killing is dependent on what the woman hopes to achieve. I feel like poisoning is very easy if you don't want to get caught. And both of the examples I have, they did poison their victims, more or less.
I was going to say poisoning's tricky, though, because you got to make sure that it's not to like tell you how to kill someone, but like it can't really stay in the system, or else that will be a trigger to figure out how they were like, you know what I'm trying to say?
You need to give them enough poison so that they need to die in a way that doesn't require an autopsy. So you kind of have to give them a poison that mimics natural death. Or something that they're already taking that could look like an overdose or something. An overdose, yeah. So that is all the information that there was on the internet that I could find about Black Widow killers.
Love that.
I'm going to talk about Nannie Doss now, the Giggling Granny.
Okay, before you talk about Nannie Doss, though, I want to, coming back to like our preconceived notions of Black Widow killers, I don't know why. I always thought it was like women 40 and up. But I feel like there's another term for that. And rather than like Black Widow killer, it's, maybe, I don't know. It just like old ladies that just kill off all of their husbands to make money. I feel like there's a term.
I think it's, I have no idea. I think it is Black Widow killer.
Okay. It didn't say in the minimal amount of sources that were online an age range? Or just
no, it just said, it was pretty much synonymous with female serial killer.
Oh, okay.
And so then I was trying to be like, because someone mentioned Lizzie Borden. And so I was like, would Lizzie Borden be considered a Black Widow killer? And I don't think she would. I think she was just a mass murderer, because there's familicide where you like kill your family. And so like, which is kind of what she did. So like what constitutes a difference between serial killing and Black Widow killing kind of deal? Because so I don't know. There was even less information on that.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So if you find the answer to what you think it was, you just let me know.
Yeah, I was just trying to Google it quickly, and no, it's like, well, my Google search bar was old women who kill group name. And
just the Facebook group shows up.
Yeah. Yeah, serial murders, Black Widows.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That kind of just answered my question. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Carry on with our granny killer.
Mm-hmm. So, Nannie Doss was born November 4th, 1905 in Alabama. She had a controlling and abusive father who forced them to work on their farm and didn't let her and her 4 siblings go to school, so she was very uneducated. When she was 9, she hit her head on a metal bar riding on a train when it came to a sudden stop, and this caused her to suffer from severe headaches, blackouts, depression for years afterwards. When she was 16, she married her first husband, Charles Braggs, who was a coworker at the linen factory that they worked at. They married after dating for 4 months, and his mother insisted on living with them after they got married, which makes sense because she was 16.
True.
I don't know how old he was, but like
probably fucking 30 at that.
Literally, right?
Oh my God.
So Nannie's mother-in-law would take up all of Charles' attention and limit what Nannie was allowed to do. She was very controlling over her. I think it was kind of an example of like when like the weird mother-son bonding.
Yeah. I was going to say, did
like,
the mom and the husband ever get on with each other?
Yeah, it's kind of... That's how it felt in what I was reading. So either way, Charles and Nannie had 4 daughters between the years of 1923 and 1927. Nannie started drinking and smoking heavily, and they often accused each other of cheating. So it was not a healthy marriage. Charles also disappeared for days on end.
Classic.
Yeah. So in 1927, their middle 2 daughters died due to food poisoning, and Braggs took their oldest daughter and left. His mother died not long after that, and then Braggs returned in 1928 to divorce Nannie and give her back their daughter. Allegedly, Braggs left because he was frightened of her, which, makes sense because how many...
That's really fair.
Yeah, I was like, how many of those people did she kill that we just don't know about?
That sucks for the daughter, though. Hey, I'm divorcing your mom, and I don't want you anymore. Here you go. Go live with her.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so not ideal. And then in 1929, Nannie met and married her second husband, Robert Franklin Harrelson. They lived in Jacksonville with her 2 daughters from Charles Braggs, and Nannie learned that Robert was an alcoholic and had a record of assault, but they stayed married for 16 years.
Wow.
And then in 1943, Nannie's oldest daughter, Melvina, had a baby, and then 2 years later, she had another one who died shortly after birth. Melvina thought she saw her mom holding the newborn and sticking a hat pin into their head, but she had just given birth and was high on ether. So she asked her husband and sister if that's what she saw. And they said that Nannie had told them that the baby was dead and she was holding a hat pin. And the doctors didn't offer any more clarification of what happened to the baby.
Really? That's really traumatizing. Oh my God.
Right?
How would
they
that
just gaslit her?
Work with a hat pin? Is that, are you like in the skull? In the
so in the olden days they had like hats that would sit on their heads and then they would pin it to their hair so it wouldn't come off. And so it was like a sharp pin. And then baby skulls, like right after birth, they're not fully formed. There's lots of soft spots.
Yeah.
So you just stick a pin in there.
In the soft spot, and that just says, see you later?
I would imagine so. I don't know that I would like to get poked in the brain with a pin. Because they're not small. It's not like a needle prick. It's like...
Yeah, I guess I don't know what a hat pin looks like, I will say. So I'm imagining...
I think it's like this.
Whoa, no way.
I don't know if it's the same size as a pen.
Love that our recent Google is Hat Pins Canada. Recent Google search on our shared What's the Forensics.
I just looked that up. I was trying to figure out what a hat pin looked like, and I accidentally started shopping for hat pins. I'm not planning on using them for any malicious purpose.
Yeah. Just, keeping hats on your head. You know how it is.
Okay, yes. Okay, the big, beautiful ones I've seen before.
Yeah, so...
Oh, that would go like halfway through a brain, a baby's brain.
So, and then the doctors were just like, well, baby died. Too bad. So Melvina went to visit her father after a fight with her mom. the same year, I think. And she left her son, Robert, in her care. And I think he was about 2 years old at this time. And when she returned, she learned that Robert had died from asphyxia under Nannie's care. Ooh. And then 2 months later, Nannie collected the $500 life insurance policy that she had taken out on him. So
that's
good
sus.
For her.
That's kind of sus. I'd be like, take that out on him.
Very. And then in the same year, 1945, Nannie's husband, Harrelson, raped her. So she put rat poison in his whiskey jar and he died the next evening. So honestly, good on her.
Good for her.
Yeah, honestly, I don't blame her.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, no, that's
sometimes
fair.
You got to do what you got to do.
Exactly. Nannie then met her third husband, Arlie Lanning, through a Lonely Hearts column in the newspaper. And they got married 3 days later. This wasn't 3 days after her husband died. I don't know the year or time when they met, but they got married 3 days after they met. That's in person.
Okay.
So I feel like they had been kind of like messaging back and forth through the Lonely Hearts column and then like agreed to meet up. And then they were like, let's get married. And so Lanning was also a alcoholic and a womanizer. However, Nannie would often disappear for months on end in this relationship instead of the other way around. And he supposedly died from heart failure. His house was left to his sister, but it burnt down, and the insurance money was given to Nannie. Lanning's mom also died in her sleep, so Nannie went to her sister's house. And her sister at that time was bedridden, and not long after Nannie arrived, she passed away.
What?
Probably from Nannie. And then Nannie joined a dating service called the Diamond Circle Club and met Richard L. Morton. They got married in 1952, and he was not an alcoholic, but he was a cheater. So in January 1953, Nannie's mom passed away after living with them for a little bit. Nannie had poisoned her, to no one's surprise. 3 months later, Morton also died from poisoning.
Just briefly, because I haven't been keeping track mentally, how many deaths? Because we can't attribute them all to her at the moment, but how many deaths are we at? What's the count?
There's 10 deaths so far.
Okay.
Some of them we know are her. Some of them I assume were, actually all of them I assume were her.
Yeah.
So later that year, in June 1953, Nannie married Samuel Doss, who was a Nazarene minister who lost his family to a tornado in Arkansas. In September, he was admitted to the hospital with flu-like symptoms and was diagnosed with a severe digestive tract infection. He was released on October 5th and died October 12th.
Ooh.
Nannie had apparently rushed killing him to collect the 2 life insurance policies that she took out on him.
Jesus.
His sudden death alerted his doctor, who ordered an autopsy and found that he had a huge amount of arsenic in his system.
Okay.
Nannie was arrested. She confessed to killing 4 of her 5 husbands, her mother, her sister, her grandson, and her mother-in-law.
What?
But she had like 4 mother-in-laws and they had basically all died. So I'm like, which mother-in-law did you confess to?
Which one?
And she pled guilty on May 17th, 1955 and was sentenced to life in prison. She was not given the death penalty because she was a woman, which apparently that's a thing. She was never charged with the other deaths, and she passed away in 1965 from leukemia.
Oh, when she was still in jail?
Yeah.
I assume? Yeah.
Yeah. So that is Nannie Doss. She's quite a lady.
It makes me think of our previous conversation of how maybe you need to use enough poison to kill someone in order to make it look like they died of natural causes.
Yeah.
But girl, if you're using arsenic and any questions arise, anyone looks into that, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, people can't use arsenic because hey, indicator, you're being poisoned.
At that time, arsenic was in everything, though.
In everything?
Well, at what levels? Lot of the things. Because that was when I Googled the women poisoning correlation.
Yeah.
They were there was a lot of arsenic and cyanide were in
That is true. You do hear a lot about arsenic and cyanide poisoning. I feel like it was a very 20th century way of killing.
Yeah, and like there was lead in paint and like so much. Yeah. So there's so many things, right? I think there was arsenic in makeup. I think that's what it was.
Oh.
There's something like arsenic that caused like the white pigment in a lot of makeup. Yeah. Like I'm pretty sure it was one of the first, like it was like Queen Victoria or something like that. If I remember correctly, it was arsenic powder that she used to get her like really white complexion. And she actually died of arsenic poisoning because she used so much.
That makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah. So okay. While it is weird, it was also readily available. And like there was a lot of poisonous things that a lot of the women had access to, like cleaning products and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's all I had on Nannie Doss. She was quite a lady. Glad I never met her. So the next person I have is a Canadian Black Widow. And so her name is Melissa Ann Shepard. And the timeline for this is very like unknown, or none of the sources actually like showed the years that it was happening or had the same year as the other source. So I really am not sure.
Okay.
So just take it with a grain of salt. So Melissa Ann Shepard is a now 80-something-year-old lady who lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia. She has killed many of her husbands and some people who are not her husbands.
Okay, I just find it so funny too. Being a man and meeting a woman, and she's on like her 5th husband. Boy, right? Are you not gonna... Is that nothing's gonna go through your mind to say, ooh, something's going on?
Right? Or even
I don't know.
This case actually made me really mad about the justice system because she went to trial for like every husband who died or got sick or whatever. And none of the courts were like, hey, every single other person that she's been with has gotten sick and or died. So maybe we should lock her up for a while.
Wow.
Or look more into this. So yeah. In addition to killing people, throughout the 1970s and 80s, she had racked up more than 30 fraud convictions.
What a woman.
She's well known in the justice system. And her first marriage was to Russell Shepard. Somehow he remained unscathed and they just got divorced. In 1991, she married Gordon Stewart of PEI, Prince Edward Island. He died from a lethal dose of benzodiazepine, which was followed by being run over twice by her car.
I can understand like the potential of like a lethal dose of benzos. I can picture them thinking it's possibly a suicide, but she just went overkill, like no pun intended, by running over him twice.
And some sources said this happened on like a deserted road outside Halifax. So I don't know. Other sources said, or when I was reading a source, I pictured it in like their driveway or something. I don't know when or where this happened.
In a driveway could be a lot easier to be like, ooh, the car went in reverse or in neutral and it rolled down a hill and it ran him over. But to run over twice on a possible deserted road, what are you thinking?
Suspicious.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, she claimed that he was abusing her. So she got a 6-year sentence and was released after 2 years behind bars. She then turned this experience into a speaking tour and went around telling people her experience as an abused woman. So, when life gives you lemons.
All for the women who do speaking tours and share their stories. But this is not the time. You are not the type of person. Shut your mouth and go back home, please.
Yeah, so she claimed it was self-defense when she ran over him twice. And so she was even given a government grant so she could keep, so she could help other women who were in abusive relationships as well. So she was supposedly doing a lot of really good work. And who knows if she was actually a battered woman.
Well, yeah. If she is, she
she
I don't want to take that from her. I just also think that given her past history, I mean, I guess the law didn't know at the time. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Given what happens next, who knows?
Okay.
But I don't know. It's just weird. She argues that she's just being like ganged up upon and she was just a battered woman who tried to save her life and XYZ. Who knows what's true? She was in her 50s at this time.
Okay.
Not long after that, she learned that the internet gave her access to even more elderly victims. And then in 2001, she met Robert Friedrich from Florida through a Christian dating site. They got engaged after 3 days of knowing each other.
Oh my gosh.
Married after a month. And he was dead 14 months later.
Whoa.
They didn't do it all. Yeah.
I was just going to say,
when the Black Widows getting engaged or murdered within like 3 days. Like they're really eager for the insurance money.
Yeah. I was going to say, maybe just with their age, you got to do what you got to do when you still got the time, you know?
Exactly.
Who knows when you'll be with us? How much longer you'll be with us?
Yeah. You only live once.
Yep.
So there was no autopsy or charges laid. After their long honeymoon, Melissa had left a voicemail for Robert's sons that said, quote, "I have something to share with you this morning. Your father is going to change his will. You guys are getting nothing, a big fat 0. So try that on for size and have a nice day." End quote.
Whoa!
I take it she didn't get along with the kids.
I don't think so.
I can't imagine being like having my father meet a new woman. Sure, whatever. They go off, whatever. And then after his death, getting a call being like, this suck. It's all mine.
This was before he died, supposedly.
Oh, even
this
worse.
was like after they got back from their honeymoon. She like called them to taunt, like, "Hey, you're not getting anything. It's all coming to me." And
then all of a sudden he's dead?
Yeah.
Wow.
So obviously that didn't sit well with the sons. So
Rightfully
they tried to claim that she had killed their father with an overdose of prescription drugs, but they couldn't prove anything.
Can you request an autopsy in that sense?
I feel like if you have grounds for it, I think you could. But I don't know. And then in 2005, she met Alex Strategos. And she met him, moved into his condo in Florida, drugged him, and took $20,000 from him. Alex's son was concerned because his father was frequenting the hospital and his savings were shrinking. Alex was given some blood tests, and it was found that he was getting an unhealthy dose of tranquilizers. But they couldn't prove that Melissa was the one giving them to him, so she was only charged with grand theft and forgery.
Oh my gosh.
And she was given 5 years in prison.
How long did she serve with that?
I think the whole 5.
Okay.
I couldn't find anything of that. And so her fourth husband was Fred Weeks. And at this time, they were both in their late 70s and living in a retirement community in Nova Scotia. Apparently, Melissa knocked on Fred's door and told him she was lonely. His wife had just passed away, so he was also lonely, and he just let her in. They got married in 2012 or 13, depending on the source, and went on their honeymoon. He walked onto the ferry to Newfoundland, and 10 days later, he had to be wheeled off in a wheelchair because he was so sick.
Wow.
While they stayed at a bed and breakfast in Nova Scotia, he fell out of their bed and had to be hospitalized. And the doctors found that he was being heavily drugged, and it was learned that Melissa was putting tranquilizers in his coffee as well.
Where does she have access to this?
Right?
That's what I have no idea.
Where are you getting these tranquilizers from? Oh my gosh.
I have no idea. And her charges were somehow reduced from attempted murder to administering a noxious substance. And she was sentenced to 3.5 years in 2013 minus time served, which she completed in 2016.
Wow.
That is wild. So it hasn't been proven by courts, but it's very likely she has killed like 4 or 5 men, and she somehow has like avoided lengthy prison sentences her whole life. Like, what?
I wonder
so
if
Alex and Fred didn't die.
Okay.
They just were hospitalized, but the ones before did.
Okay, so not so bad, but still very bad.
Mm-hmm, exactly. What were you going to say, Nicole?
I think I was going to say, I wonder if she planned this all along, like to serve minimal sentences. Like she was crafty enough to bypass the system in a way, or if she just was darn lucky.
I have no idea.
I would love to know.
I feel like she just kind of got lucky and played like the old woman. I was like, probably. No, I couldn't possibly do this. But who knows? So Alex Strategos was interviewed in 2016 and did not think that she should be released.
Rightfully so.
Yep, fair enough. And with her release, there were 22 conditions, some of which were she had to report any relationship with a man to the police, she couldn't access the internet, and if she changed her appearance at all, she had to be photographed by police so they would have like an updated copy of what she looks like.
Wow.
And not even a month after she was released, she was found at the Halifax Public Library surfing the internet. And she had 3 charges of breaching her conditions, but they were dropped, so nothing happened.
What's the point of having those conditions if you're not gonna fucking... okay.
Right?
Anyways.
And she has such a terrible history. So what are we doing? Anyway, she's, I think, alive right now and supposedly keeping a low profile. The Fifth Estate did an episode on her called The Widow's Web, if you want to learn more about her. She also has a few CBC interviews, I think. I just looked her name up on the CBC website. So watch those. I haven't had a chance to yet, but they seem very interesting. Mm-hmm. But that is all I have on Black Widow killers. This episode could be like 8 days long if I had gone into each and every single Black Widow killer.
Yeah.
But I know we're going to do Eileen Wuornos later in the year, so I didn't want to talk about her because I don't think she's a Black Widow killer because she didn't marry the people she killed.
Yeah, I never really saw her as a Black Widow killer, or considered her one. But I do find it interesting that the 2 case studies that you chose to talk about, one was more of like that familicide, whereas the other one was very much like spouses and husbands.
Yeah.
Because that's who I would have thought, like Melissa Ann Shepard is very much like the idea of a Black Widow killer that I had in my mind.
Yeah, same.
So it's cool to have learned about the other Black Widow, Nannie Doss.
Yeah. I just wish that there was more of like a definition of like a Black Widow killer has to be married. They have to get some sort of financial compensation or like something from it. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like it's such a broad label.
Okay, off of that then, if you were to define Black Widow killers, just spitballing, what conditions would you consider?
Ooh.
Also, before you do that, because I have another thought about conditions, to have 22 conditions given to you, I would forget them instantly. How do you remember your 22 conditions?
Same, yeah. And also, it's 2016, and she couldn't access the internet. She wouldn't be able to use anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even really think about that. But yeah, she wouldn't even be able to use some fridges.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just insane. But I guess, like, she's 80 when she was released. So a lot of 80-year-olds I know are not technologically savvy at all.
Yeah. I don't think they're teaching every... Yeah. Anyways, Black Widow definitions, working definitions. What would you say?
I would define a Black Widow as someone who kills like their partner. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would consider a Black Widow as someone who kills their family members so much.
I see that as a very different typology of killer.
Mm-hmm. And they kind of have like this habit of like marrying someone and then them killing or them dying. And then them collecting like either insurance money or divorce money or just whatever. I guess it wouldn't be divorce money if they die, but just kind of
some form of settlement.
That cycle. Yeah. How would you guys define Black Widow, I guess?
I would say I would probably classify it as a more female-based like victimology or typology.
Same.
With repeated offenses against spouses. And I think there'd have to be more than one spouse that was in harm's way.
I agree.
And yeah, like you said, like some form of not always monetary gain, but there's, I think, having that same concept that they're going after each time. Like it may not each be, oh, he was abusive, so I'm going to kill my 4 husbands because they're all abusive. Maybe, but I don't know if I'd see that as a Black Widow.
Yeah.
I would see, oh, all of my husbands have money. I'm going to suck them dry, take their money, kill them.
Yeah.
That I would see as a Black Widow.
Same, yeah.
What about you, Rebecca? I would have to agree with both of your definitions. Both of what you said are along the same lines as me. Like, I think, Nicole, you're right. Like, it's definitely like a female-based kind of victimology or subsection of crime, serial killers. I don't even know what I'm trying to say there. But definitely like more female-based. And same, I think there needs to be multiple spouses either attempted to be murdered or murdered. I don't know if I would consider like killing of your own family members as part of being a Black Widow, but I would say like if they had already put multiple of their husbands in harm's way, then I would definitely consider like if they were killing their husband's family as well, then that could be like a part of the typology.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
Apparently, I just saw this, I think it was on Reddit, so obviously a good source, that the male equivalent of a Black Widow is called a Bluebeard because there's this myth about a guy called Bluebeard. He's like Captain Bluebeard or something. And he is like collecting wives and he like marries this one lady and she's in the house and he has to go somewhere and he's like, don't go in this room. You can go anywhere in the house, but not this room. So naturally, she wanted to go in that room.
Go in that room.
So she like calls her sisters over and like breaks into that room and opens it up, and it's all the dead bodies of previous wives.
What? That's terrifying. But also good on her for being like, don't tell me what to do. I'm breaking in.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. And then he came home and I don't know if he killed her or if their brothers got there in time to stop him or whatever. But yeah, I was like, interesting. What a scary, scary myth.
I wonder then if
wild.
The male equivalent would have like the same kind of motivational aspect. If monetary gain would still be a factor, or maybe it's more dominance based and maybe it's more just, I'm showing you who's boss. I'm going to kill.
I feel like nowadays, yes, because women are allowed to have their own successful like jobs and careers.
Yeah.
But also it's a very fine line between a male serial killer and a male like Black Widow, you know?
Yeah, I guess the connection piece is what would differentiate them, because serial killers not often, but there can be some randomness to victims. It's just, hey, you look nice, I'm going to kill you. Whereas with the Black Widow, I feel like it's much more closer to home.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think that makes sense. Like, I feel like for a man to be one, they also need to only be victimizing like spouses or relatives of spouses, sort of thing.
Yeah, which I guess we don't really see that, or I guess I can't think of anyone specifically who was like that.
Can't either.
Nothing jumps out. Which I find
maybe we'll have to try and find a male Black Widow for an episode.
Yeah, because I feel like when we talk about like male serial killers, we see a lot of them that like actually have a wife, and it's like the one woman in their life they don't try to hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a Black Widow male would be almost like, in terms of victimizing, like almost like the opposite of a traditional male serial killer.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, actually.
Yeah.
Interesting. So food for thought. Let us know in the comments of our YouTube video or our website what you guys think a Black Widow could be defined as, and or if male Black Widows are a thing.
Yeah, I would love to know if there's any characteristics that we kind of overlooked that if we heard it, we'd be like, yeah, that's a Black Widow. Like, that would be a Black Widow killer.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all things Black Widow. I am happy that it was different than my expectations going into this episode. I feel like I'm always surprised with these episodes. Yeah. And that is a joy of not not having to do the research for things like that. You just are going in blind, and we get to learn from each other. Mm-hmm. So yes, thank you for covering those two cases and a little bit about Black Widows. Just briefly too, Rebecca, do you have any fun news sources for us?
I do. So what I'm about to talk about, I thought was like a brand new discovery, like brand new archaeological kind of discovery in the Yukon. Through a bit more research to actually tell you guys about it, I've realized that this was uncovered in June of 2022. But there's articles coming out about it right now because they're talking about sending it to Ottawa for preservation. But did you guys hear that last year in the Yukon, they uncovered what is believed to be the best preserved baby woolly mammoth in North America?
I think I saw a photo, but it looked fake, so I just kept scrolling by. That is so cool.
So I put 2 pictures on our slides. Obviously, I'm also going to put them in the Forensic Friday. One of it with people to show how tiny he is, and then one showing like up close. But yeah, so on June 21st of 2022, there was a group of miners digging through the permafrost at Eureka Creek in the Yukon. And this is a pretty common place for excavation because the Yukon, and specifically this creek, are known to contain a lot of gold. Okay. And apparently they were digging in it. And as he like stuck one of their mines or drills or something in, this permafrosted baby woolly mammoth apparently just like literally fell out of the side of the creek.
What?
That's so cool.
Yeah. So part of what makes this the best preserved woolly mammoth, or at least baby woolly mammoth that we found in North America, is that even though it is suspected that this baby died in a storm over 30,000 years ago and got buried by like the snow, which entrapped him in the permafrost, he still intact were his trunk, his hair, his skin, his toenails, and his intestines.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Isn't that crazy? Like, I was in disbelief.
I will be a devil's advocate. Have they done all of like the testing to prove that he's that old? Because I don't know if circuses are up in the Yukon, but a baby elephant maybe could have.
I think they have. I think they have done the research. Like they said, the government of Yukon was working with a group of researchers, like paleontologists, and I forget the name of one of the scientists, but it sounded really fancy, and it was to do with really old animals. And then they were also working with the elders of the indigenous Trondheim tribe because it was found on their land.
Love that.
And I just thought this was really sweet. So the elders of this land gave a name to this baby elephant because they wanted to honor it, and they had like a prayer circle for it and all of this stuff. And they named him Nun Choga, which in the Han language, which is the language of the Trondheim, means baby big animal.
Oh, that's so cute.
I know. That made me so happy. But
I love that.
Yeah, so the recent news coming out about it is saying that basically there was a bit of like a limbo since last year because they weren't really sure how best to preserve the mammal. They didn't know if it should stay on this traditional territory or if it should go for research. But apparently right now it's in the works that they are going to be sending the Nunchoga to Ottawa to be preserved and then potentially like put in like a museum in Ottawa or used for research. But either way, they're trying to preserve it the best they can. And that's in the motions now. And I was just so happy to hear about this little baby mammoth.
That's so cool. I had no idea. I hadn't heard anything about that. I love it.
Right? Oh, it's just so like, it's archaeology so cool. Or anthropology. I'm not even sure what this would be considered. Paleontology? Maybe.
Yeah, I've got no idea.
There's so many streams it could fall under. It reminds me, have either of you been to the ROM? The Royal Ontario Museum?
I actually don't know if I have been or not. I don't think so.
I highly recommend. They have a giant sloth skeleton there. And it's so cool. And just mind-boggling to be like, wow, these animals existed that long ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And I am here on this earth for 23 years. That's nothing.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane.
Wow. That's so cool.
Cool. Thank you so much for that little tidbit. I love that like our stuff is so archaeology based too, I will say.
I know, it's like all of our fun facts are like, hey, did you hear about this thing that they just dug up?
Super old thing. Oh, I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. I hope we find out more about this little big animal moving forward. If you find any updates, news article wise, can you share them with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm so bad with looking at the news.
Oh, I know. I am too. I get it all from Reddit. But yeah, I'm like we always do with like our Forensic Friday, our fun news articles and stuff. I know our listeners can't see the pictures I just showed you guys, but they will be up probably under Forensic Friday on our website. So
cool. Or you can just Google old woolly mammoth found Yukon. I'm sure something would pop up.
Oh, definitely. That's what I looked up to find out more. So
yeah. And I'm sure we'll do a post on it too. So you can look on our Instagram as well. Because we have all of our Forensic Fridays on our Instagram too.
Yeah.
Check us out there. Perfect. Okay. Thank you to the both of you for always teaching me something new. My brain always grows these episodes. Next topic, we are going to talk a bit about Anthony Kirkland and some conversations around burnt bones. I'm kind of excited about this. I did a presentation on thermal effects on bone, so I may just regurgitate that out to you guys, and we'll see how that goes.
That sounds fun.
I have a whole slideshow and everything that I can go along with. But yeah, I'm super excited for them. Well, that topic, I guess. And you all listening to us, you people, wonderful, wonderful people, can find us, like Journey had said, on our Instagram. And you can also find us on YouTube and Facebook at What the Forensics for those three. You can find us on Twitter or X at WT Forensics PC. Our website, best place of all, whattheforensics.ca. This is your one-stop shop for everything forensics. So you've got stuff about us, you've got our resources, you've got recommended reading materials that we've gone through or media to consume. Really anything, that's just where you'll get it all. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, want to say hi, you can also email us at whattheforensics@gmail.com. And if you want to give us a review, we would not say no to that if it's a nice one. So we do love to read them. We do always want to improve this experience for everyone, not just for ourselves, but for you guys too. And we're excited to keep going with this. And so this has been another episode of What the Forensics. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next episode.
Bye. Just a reminder to everyone that we are not professionals in the forensic science field. We are just interested in forensics and want to share what we are learning with our listeners. We're trying to give you the most accurate information, but we are human and can make mistakes. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you next week.